Hello everyone, Rorius here, back with the Portal 2 developer commentary playthrough. I'm right where we left off. I think I might be just a little bit before. I think GLaDOS is about to say something that she said in the previous episode, but I'll let you listen again just in case you wanna hear where we're up to, remind yourself where we're up to.
Be careful not to trip over any parts of me that didn't get completely burned when you threw them down here.
Yeah, so
The
GLaDOS...
dual portal device should be around here somewhere. Once you find it, we can start testing, just like old times.
Yeah, so GLaDOS has just thrown us down the incinerator that we threw her parts down, and she's sending us down to reclaim the dual portal device that I guess the one you had, there's a companion cube that just flew past. She's sending you to gain the one that you had from the previous game. Just help it get... Oh god. Wasn't expecting that. Okay, let's just go.
There it is. Hold on.
Yeah. Something that... I'll just claim it first. 1 second.
Good. You have a dual portal device. There should be a way back to the testing area up ahead.
Before I go, something I just want to point out that they don't appear to have a node here for, and I was not aware of when I first went through here, or at least not initially. This is the room, or it's supposed to be a version of the room that you get lowered into at the end of Portal 1. It's the fire room. It's the room that normally has big inferno in it, and you're supposed to die in it, basically. So yeah, this is this is the fated room. And you just sort of come through there from another part of the furnace from over there. You'll see it soon. See,
Once testing starts, I'm required by protocol to keep interaction with you to a minimum. Luckily, we haven't started testing yet. This will be our only chance to talk.
yeah, I was not aware of it at first. Like, you wouldn't think it was at first, but mainly because of the wall panels and stuff are slightly different. Like, there was no, as far as I'm aware, this whole section here was all like metal originally, so you couldn't, portal on any of this surface here. But yeah, this area is the final sort of I guess the final part of the puzzle, and you make your way around.
Let me get that for you. Do you know the biggest lesson I learned from what you did? I discovered I have a sort of black box quick save feature. In the event of a catastrophic failure, the last 2 minutes of my life are preserved for analysis. I was able, well, forced really, to relive you killing me again and again, forever. You know, if you'd done that to somebody else, they might devote their existence to exacting revenge. Luckily, I'm a bigger person than that. I'm happy to put this all behind us and get back to work. After all, we've got a lot to do, and only 60 more years to do it. More or less.
More or less.
I don't have the actuarial tables in front of me.
Yeah, this part is sort of new. This part didn't exist originally, and this is one of the pieces of glass that was right next to the actual puzzle in this level. There's the ball shooter up here, I think, that bounces the ball back and forth, and then there's the catcher over here, or vice versa. I forget which direction it goes. This was originally just a straight, causeway, I guess. Yeah, but I don't know why they added this a little bit. I guess just to make you have to pull a little bit more than you would normally. But yeah, you're basically walking through what used to be filled with acid areas. And this part is genuinely... It's where the button used to be that would open and close this thick door here. And yeah, so that's... I was not aware, I wasn't aware I was in the same chamber until I got to this part. I recognized the chamber when I got to this part because of the, the panels that were here. They've closed, they've shut themselves down. But yeah, so this is the final test. Welcome to the final test, when you are done. Yeah, this is chamber 19.
When the player first encounters the robot arms, we wanted to convey that they were still coming back online. The idea was that GLaDOS was just waking up, and hadn't yet fully regained control of them. Slowly over the course of the first few levels of this act, she gets more sure of herself, and her ability to alter and mess with the lab increases. The arms presented a number of challenges, the key one being the interaction with the player. It was easy for the player to get stuck behind or inside of the models if they did something too complex. So we had to limit most of the arm action to the walls or ceilings of the test chambers, and we restricted their use on a larger scale to areas where we could be sure of the player's location.
Yeah, so there's a few... The challenge, I guess, is that there's a few areas where the player has to walk, like, through or around these models, and a lot of the more visually interesting ones happen away from the player, so that the developers don't have to worry about collision with these things. But this one in particular is one that does... The collision's a bit weird, because the models are very complicated, and it's way too difficult, or it's way too taxing on the engine to do realistic physics collisions with these kind of things, so they tend to put barriers, blocks around the models. Anyway, on to the next one.
I'll just move that out of the way for you. This place really is a wreck.
I think
But the important thing is you're back. With
I'll
me.
let GLaDOS speak.
And now I'm on to all your little tricks. So there's nothing to stop us from testing for the rest of your life. After that, who knows? I might take up a hobby. Reanimating the dead, maybe.
I love how bitter GLaDOS is in this scene, in these scenes, because it's like, she's like, I don't harbor a grudge. Clearly harboring a grudge. Yeah.
Sorry about the mess. I've really let the place go since you killed me. By the way, thanks for that.
Sarcasm self-test complete.
Oh good, that's back online. I'll start getting everything else working while you perform this first, simple test, which involves deadly lasers, and how test subjects react when locked in a room with deadly lasers.
GLaDOS originally was a lot more cutting in these opening rooms, given that she's talking to someone she perceives as her murderer. Playtests revealed, though, that it was a bit grueling getting browbeaten by GLaDOS this early in the game, so her arc was rewritten to give her more of a slow burn towards the player.
I actually am glad they did that. I wish they did it a little bit more intensely, actually, because, in my opinion, I love the Portal 2 GLaDOS, but one of the things that bothers me about the Portal 2 GLaDOS is that she's more just directly insulting and loathsome of the player, whereas in Portal 1 it was almost like a cold indifference to the player. In the first one she was just sort of like, she didn't care about you as the player, she just sort of saw you as test subject number 3700 whatever. And it wasn't until you actually start escaping that she starts, personally insulting you and trying to mess with your head, sort of thing. And that is the kind of, that's what I loved about GLaDOS in the first game. And I mean, it makes sense for the story that she's mad right off the bat, but I find the sort of the insults are less impactful, when she's being so petty about some of the insults, when, she should be more angry, basically. Logically she should be more angry, but yeah, so some of the insults come off as just kind of petty and for no reason. But I love the sort of reflection that happens when Wheatley starts insulting you and GLaDOS defends you. So anyway, on to the next one. I love this test chamber as well, like right off the bat. I don't know if you saw that, but what was originally in this room, it was originally, it's semi-destroyed. It's actually a repurposed chamber from the first game, once again. Originally there's a ball shooter that's actually, you can see it up there. There's the ball shooter. And there's normally a receiver down here. But what happens is when you first walk into the room, like, clearly GLaDOS hasn't really got ready yet, she's only just been turned on. And so as you're entering the chamber, she's busy taking out the ball shooters that they've removed from Portal 2 and replaces them with these laser shooter and receivers. For anyone who's interested in, For anyone who's interested in Portal Unity, just note that I've done the same thing.
I forgot how good you are at this. You should pace yourself, though. We have a lot of tests to do.
Yeah, I have essentially done the same thing with the Reboot, purely because energy balls basically don't work in Portal 2. Well, they don't work normally. I'd have to do a lot more work to get them to work. Instead, I refashioned I restructured the chambers that had energy balls in them to work as rooms with lasers in them instead. I prefer the lasers. I prefer how they feel when you're using them, when you're redirecting them and that kind of thing. And so yeah, I repurposed it. And a few of the chambers that originally utilized energy balls and stuff, I repurposed so that they used pivot cubes and you know, redirection of lasers instead. And that actually made it for a much nicer, much better feeling chamber towards the end. There's one in particular I'm thinking of that
This
you will
next
see
test
in
involves
time.
discouragement redirection cubes. I just finished building them before you had your, well, episode. So now we'll both get to see how they work.
Yeah.
There should be one in the corner.
Yes, that's right. I believe this is just nice and straightforward. Yeah. Wait, actually, I'll just check in here. There isn't a node in here, is there? Right. See, that was a little example of Wheatley. You can actually catch him there, which causes all sorts of problems. The development commentary is on, isn't it? I haven't seen a node so far. I would have thought there would be one in here.
Well done. Here come the test results.
You are a
You
horrible
are
person.
a horrible person.
That's what it
That's
says.
what it says. A
A
horrible
horrible
person. We weren't even testing for that.
Oh dear.
Don't let that horrible person thing discourage you. It's just a data point. If it makes you feel any better, science has now validated your birth mother's decision to abandon you on a doorstep.
Ow. Alrighty, so we're back here. In case you didn't notice, previously, I was clearly playing an old save that I had, and I was missing all the nodes, and I rightfully determined that, wait, there should be nodes here. So yeah, we're back now, and so everything should resume as normal. I love the animation that happens here, but I like standing on top of it more. Not that that really helps you in any particular way, other than maybe skipping having to grab that. But where does this need to go? Over there. Eh. Nope. Okay, let's just do this normally. Let's not be silly. There we go. And I believe this one is just a... Wait, before I do that one, I have a feeling that there might be a node down here. Nope? Okay. This is where I thought there would be a node, and that's what actually ended up leading me to, you know, restart this whole thing. So the fact that there isn't a node here is quite surprising, quite funny. By the way, I love that song. I'm gonna go back here. Probably shouldn't listen to it, it'll probably be copyright restricted. But yeah, if you don't know that song, it's Exile Vilify by The Nationals. Great song. Yeah. I'm not sure if it's actually copyrighted or not. I
Not
wonder
on
if
the
they are.
test. Most people emerge from suspension terribly
That's cool.
undernourished. I want to congratulate you on beating the odds and somehow
Somehow
managing to pack on a few pounds.
Oh dear. Well, yeah, I guess if you're in stasis you'd think you'd waste away, but... I was gonna say, well, if you're not doing anything and you're just being fed through a tube, I don't know if you'll get fed through a tube or not, it's just a bed. The stasis chambers appear to just be a bed. So I don't know how it puts you into stasis.
One moment. You are navigating these test chambers faster than I can build them.
I love
so
that
feel
idea.
free to slow down and do whatever it is you do when you're not destroying this facility.
Like one of those previous nodes said, I love that whole thing where you're entering the chamber and she's not ready yet and she has to like pull apart the the panels and stuff. And the idea that she's slowly gaining control of the facility, I like that. I like that a lot. Right, let's just move. I keep thinking that there should be nodes, but there's not as many nodes in this game as there were in Portal 1. Probably purely to do with... this gets dropped behind me. That's like, where does that go? right there. That's right. Oh god, what am I doing? Yeah, so if you bring this over here, place a blue portal, then you don't need to worry. I just do this little... There we go.
I'll give you credit.
Little trick.
I guess you are listening to me. For the record, you don't have to go that slowly.
Even if you do that, like, breakneck speed, borderline world records and stuff, she still refers to you as slow in that one. And then earlier on, she was busy saying how fast you did it. Even if you stop and wait for like 5 minutes, she'll tell you, like, I forgot how good you are at this. Like, no, stop it. Okay. Ooh, this is the aerial faith plate. I like the aerial faith plate. It's one of the ones we managed to recreate relatively poorly. I say relatively because the Valve's version, you know, the
This
proper
next
version.
test involves the Aperture Science Aerial Faith Plate.
I
It
love
was
this.
part of an initiative to investigate how well test subjects could solve problems when they were catapulted into space. Results were highly informative.
They could not.
Good luck.
Yeah. Yeah, this is one of the ones that we actually managed to recreate, but the official version, the way that they work, they're kind of cheatsy. I wonder if the node will say something about it.
This was the first test map that we created when we started to experiment with the aerial faith plate puzzle element. The map underwent many visual refinements, but it's one of the few puzzles that remained almost completely unchanged from its first form.
It's always cool to hear that. Like, that's... it's always cool to hear when an idea that is originally developed, you know, is so structurally sound that it doesn't end up getting changed at all during development. There's a few levels like that in the original Portal as well. And actually, one of the things I love about... he said the visual changes. One of the things I actually love about this chamber is the duality. It's almost like you're crossing the barrier between the old, where it's all, dilapidated and destroyed, and the new, where GLaDOS has reformed and recreated the chambers. I think it's a brilliant metaphorical and visual representation of the development. I also love... You can just hear it. I love that... Firstly, I quite like the aerial faith plate music that actually comes out of this box. But I love the way they implemented it. You can hear it very faintly when you're sitting next to the box. But when you go on the aerial faith plates, it boosts the sound right up. The dynamic music that they used for this
Here's an
game.
interesting fact. You're not breathing real air. It's too expensive to pump this far down. We just take carbon dioxide out of a room, freshen it up a little, and pump it back in. So you'll be breathing the same room full of air for the rest of your life. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, she's just trying to make you feel helpless. A lot of mental, like manipulation and stuff going on here.
Let's see what the next test is. Oh, advanced aerial faith plates. Well, have fun soaring through the air without a care in the world. I have to go to the wing that was made entirely of glass and pick up 15 acres of broken glass. By myself.
Yeah, it's another example of the panels being shifted out of your way. I actually love that the song for this level is actually called 15 Acres of Broken Glass or something like that, something along those lines. I actually love that phrase. I love that that line. Anyway.
The catapult trajectory lines seen here allow us to visualize where the catapult will deliver a player or a physics object. We can
Max
differentiate
height.
the speed and trajectory for players and other objects. The yellow lines are for physics objects, and green is the player's trajectory. Sometimes we need to have a different value to accommodate the shape of the object being catapulted. What works for the player may not work for an object, and vice versa. For instance, it was common for a box to make it to a ledge while the player would smack into the side, and then fall down into the slime. The
Yep.
visualization tools helped us debug these types of problems.
This is exactly a problem that we had with our catapults. hence why when you first walk into the first aerial faithplate chamber, the Hades talks about how the best use of our faithplates were if you threw a box onto the plate, whereas you worked best if you just walked onto them, because we found there was so much variation when you're using just pure physics to achieve the catapults. The difference here is that the way that they implemented these catapults, they don't work by basic physics. They work with they work with, what the hell's that called? Projectile motion. But they don't just work in the way that they look. They look like they just are a catapult that launches you, flicks you up and launches you in a direction. These are very precise. They direct you in a very tight arc, and it's based around a position. There's a requirement attached to the catapult that is attached to, in this case, the next catapult, and this catapult will do anything it can, basically, to force, to apply a motion to force a player to land in or around that target. And the catapult does have a velocity attached to it, and using that velocity it will determine whether or not it has to launch you, how high it has to launch you, basically, or how hard horizontally it needs to force you. I zoomed into this before because you could see a square, little yellow box around this. Actually, I'll just activate the node.
The catapult trajectory lines seen here allow us to visualize where the catapult will deliver a player.
Those square boxes are actually triggers that are attached to the to these platforms that are it's actually another catapult. The way that catapults work in this game is that if you didn't have a catapult on this surface, when we go to do the jump in a minute, that you wouldn't actually make it from there all the way across to the platform over there where you're... Oh no, wait, is it there? I think it might be there that you're supposed to land. You wouldn't actually make that jump normally. If you're just using the momentum from this fling that takes you over this way, if you just use the momentum from that fling to try and fling you back across like that, it just doesn't work, it doesn't reach. I mean, you could probably tweak it so that it reached, but to make sure the player actually lands there, they have catapults on the surfaces of these platforms, and they are targeted at the next landing zone. And they had a few up there as well, I think. Yeah, they had a few up there for the box that flies out and lands over there. Actually, I'll just...
The catapult trajectory lines seen here allow us to visualize where the catapult...
So they had a few up here as well, just for if you want to use send the box through there, which I think does happen. If I'm not mistaken. I don't actually remember very well. Wait, what node was that?
The catapult...
Okay, it's the only node. But I'll check in the Ratman Den anyway. But yeah, so I used them when I recreated the aerial faithplate puzzles in Portal Unity. Okay, I'm not going to go straight through here, because I want to go up here. I don't remember how that works now. Oh, wait. Okay, I just remembered how it works. Back to the start. Okay, let's try that again. So there's another thing that Portal 2 brings is the portal it's like an advanced version of the portal bumper, which will make sure that portals land sort of center on a platform. So when I shoot this platform over here, instead of landing on the left-hand side of the platform, like that's where it should have landed previously. Instead, it landed right in the middle when just shooting generally. Although it's not... Interestingly, it's not happening now. Whatever, we'll go ahead. See, they're very specifically tuned to make sure that you go exactly where you're supposed to go. So yeah, this is one of the Ratman Dens. I thought there might have been a node in here, but there is not. So we'll just, once again, return to doing the puzzle as normal. Let's quickly get back onto it. And once again, you can hear the dynamic music. In this case, it's just coming from generally... it sounds like it's coming from generally around the room, but it might be coming from the areas in the air, so like halfway through the jumps. Not sure about that. Okay. That's right, there's this whole junk thing.
Oh, sorry. I'm still cleaning out the test chambers, so sometimes there's still trash in them, standing around, smelling and being useless. Try to avoid the garbage hurtling towards you.
Just gonna put that into there for now, and then we'll press it again. I could have gathered them. They're quite funny objects to have come out there, but I'm gonna use this because I never use this. I never use this platform up here to get the box to the button. I always grab it and then drop it on top of it. So I'm gonna see what happens when you catapult it across like that. It didn't work. Okay, let's try lower. Let's see if that works instead. Moment of truth. Yeah. See, it lands perfectly on the button from there. That's the catapult doing
Remember
its work.
before when I was talking about smelly garbage standing around being useless? That was a metaphor. I was actually talking about you. And I'm sorry. You didn't react at the time, so I was worried it sailed right over your head, which would have made this apology seem insane. That's why I had to call you garbage a second time just now. Did you know that people with guilty consciences are more easily startled by loud noises? I'm sorry. I don't know why that went off. Anyway, just an interesting science fact.
That is one of my absolute all-time favorite lines. Does Wheatley not? Oh, I think he might show up here in a second.
Oh, did I accidentally fizzle that before you could complete the test? I'm sorry. Go ahead and grab another one.
She's just like trying to taunt you.
Oh, no. I fizzled that one too. Oh well. We have warehouses full of the things. Absolutely worthless. I'm happy to get rid of them.
Yeah. I swear Wheatley normally comes through one of those gaps. Maybe I missed him. It's all good. Now, what am I doing? I know you can keep the companion cube in this room. If you want to be sentimental and keep the companion cube, you can do that. Yeah, and you hear the little music emanating from the box. I love, there's a comment coming up I just remembered that I love as well. I think if I'm not mistaken, it's if you put it somewhere like that, I think you can grab it. I'll try it, but I'm not gonna make a big deal out of it. Because I think she says something about
Every
it.
test chamber is equipped with an emancipation grill at its exit, so that test subjects cannot smuggle test objects out of the test area. This one is broken. Don't take anything with you.
Of course this one's broken. And I find it interesting, the effect that comes out of these emancipation grills is it actually looks a lot more like the original particle effect in Portal 1. Although, that being said, originally Portal 1 was going to have an effect much more like Portal 2 ended up having. There we go. So, swings and roundabouts, I guess. Except GLaDOS does not let you have this. Does not let
I
you have
think
this
that one was about to say, I love you. They are sentient, of course. We just have a lot of them.
We just have a lot of them. Alrighty.
This next test involves emancipation grills. Remember, I told you about them in the last test area that did not have one.
Oh dear, that's funny.
We needed a puzzle that would demonstrate the different effects that the Fizzler has on the game. This map was consistently the one that most of our playtesters would get stuck on, and we tried various things to make the puzzle easier to understand.
Really interesting.
Originally, this room had 2 Fizzlers in it and was divided up into 3 distinct areas. This proved to be too complicated and almost none of our playtesters could solve the puzzle. We removed the second Fizzler and simplified the layout of the room quite a bit, but most of our playtesters were still getting stuck on it. We identified the problem to be the space above the Fizzler. Originally, the space was completely open, but that didn't effectively convey to the players that they needed to shoot a portal above the Fizzler. We then tried putting glass with several holes in it above the Fizzler. This was slightly more effective as players would know that the holes are there for a purpose, and would try to solve the puzzle by shooting portals through the holes. The map was still not testing well though, as players could not figure out which side of the Fizzler they needed to be on when they shot their portals. We then changed it to have only a single hole through the glass, moved down to the eye level of the player, so that shooting the portal from either side of the Fizzler would be a valid solution. This change tested really well, and we started seeing most of our playtesters make it through the level without getting stuck on it for a long time.
While I appreciate the development, and I actually like hearing about that kind of thing, because those are changes that need to be made for the general, population, I guess. But it also saddens me to hear that such drastic changes had to be made purely because people couldn't get it. That always bothers me when I hear that. But Valve are a good development group, so their changes were likely the best solution. So I trust their ability to know their own games. I think it's pretty simple. The final result. That's my only concern, is that the final result is quite simple. Then again, we are in the early stages of Portal 2, so anyway, hopefully GLaDOS won't start talking.
We originally planned to use the same emancipation grid effect we'd used in Portal 1. We were surprised to hear during several of our early playtests that players thought this map was the first time they'd encountered one. Players walked through at least one emancipation grid in almost every map. Playtesters also weren't able to report the grid's properties. That indicated to us that we needed to better communicate when an interaction was occurring. Our challenge was to create an effect that was more noticeable to players, but didn't look so solid or so threatening that players wouldn't attempt to walk through it. We chose to keep the cool color scheme and reinforce the non-threatening nature of the field by mimicking the kind of water caustics you'd find in a shallow swimming pool. To communicate that the grid blocks portal placement, we added flashes whenever the player shoots one. To warn players that the grid will destroy objects brought through it, we added a vortex effect that increases in intensity as objects get near. Once these changes went in, playtest feedback demonstrated that players noticed the emancipation grids earlier and had a much better understanding of their function.
Yeah. So, a really cool, interesting insight into something as simple as the emancipation grids. I actually feel like GLaDOS said something earlier that we missed because we were listening to this node. There's a really funny line in this map, in this level. I might just intentionally kill myself if I can. There we go. Takes a bit, but
This next test involves emancipation grills. Remember, I told you about them in the last test area that did not have one.
yeah, it's a good line that comes up in a second.
Oh no, the turbines again. I have to go. Wait, this next test does require some explanation. Let me give you the fast version. There, if you have any questions, just remember what I said in slow motion. Test on your own recognizance. I'll be right back.
Yeah. That's a great line. I know there's another YouTuber that I've seen a video for that uses that. Apparently he used that in one of his school projects. For he had some time limit, or some oral thing had some time limit, and so he used that as like a way of finishing up his work. Oh dear. Okay, so we've reached chapter 3. I'll leave the video here, and I'll try and get this out in due time. I think left myself a little bit short amount of time to edit this. But yeah, nevertheless, we'll get back to this in the next episode. I think that's all I have to say. So in the meantime, thank you so much for watching. If you liked what you saw, hit like. If you want to see more of this, or if you want to see more of my gameplay videos or whatever, subscribing is the best way to keep up with what I upload. I'm also on Twitter at Rorius45 if you want to follow, if you want to like use that to keep up with when I upload videos, because I do tweet each time I upload a video. So yeah, I also don't do a lot of tweeting on Twitter, so it won't, you won't be spammed with anything but my videos, just my videos. So yeah, thank you so much for watching, and as always,